Alright, welcome back. In this video we're going to use that flight plan that we made last time, and we're going to load this onto an aircraft and fly it. Now, just so you know, this is not a real aircraft. I am currently connected to the simulator, which I will go over in another video. Super useful tool for checking out new features, figuring out how the aircraft is going to behave in a certain situation, and also nice for demonstrating things. So we've got a checklist for this too. So in Kitty Hawk, we're going to click Add, Log Checklist, and we're going to go to Lin Aero VTOL Pre-Flight. And that is going to get us ready to get going. So I'm not going to be able to show you all of this, but I'll paste in some pictures and things to help you along the way. First thing, check the wings and tail are secure. This is really important on the VTOL. There's these little latches, and they're it's easy to put the wings on and the tail on and them not be quite latched. So be sure that also the nose cone has the same latches. So checking those are secure. Install the battery. This is going to go fully to the rear of the aircraft and then get strapped in with the battery strap. Check the control surfaces. So just like with a fixed wing aircraft, any other fixed wing aircraft, you're going to just manually manipulate the control surfaces. Make sure all of the control horns and linkages are secure, not bent, not breaking off, anything like that, not loose. Check motors and propellers for the same thing. Make sure the propellers are all secure. Make sure they're not damaged, chipped, cracked, anything like that. Power up the ground control station, so that's going to be our handheld controller, whether that's a HereLink or a Tyrannus, and then also making sure the computer's powered up, ready to go, telemetry radios are plugged in, all of that. Power up the aircraft, so we're going to connect up the battery. And then we're going to connect. So I've already done that here, but we're connected. As long as your telemetry radio is on, you're good to go for that. Check for attitude and altitude errors. So what I mean by that is looking at the artificial horizon, make sure that everything is correct. So this may not be perfectly level, and in fact in the field this will almost never be perfectly level, but make sure that if this says you're rolled to the left 5 degrees, that the aircraft is actually rolled to the left 5 degrees. You can take off like that, that's no problem, just make sure it's correct. And then also with altitude, making sure that this is reading within 2 meters of zero. There can be calibration issues, and if it's reading like 8, then you need to reboot the aircraft. Check battery voltage, so it's not displayed on here, but if it's not, we can add user items and we can add battery voltage there. This aircraft, because it's a simulator, doesn't have a sensor, but it would show up down here. Make sure that's within your operating range. For our purposes with this VTOL with the 6S battery, you should be seeing about 25 volts, or maybe a little bit higher. That's going to indicate that your battery is full. Check flight plan altitude. So now we're going to go in and validate our flight plan before we load it and make sure everything is correct, because as with a fixed wing, the one thing that is going to get you in trouble with the VTOL is having a bad flight plan. Having one of these numbers be 6 instead of 60 or something like that, that's what's going to cause a crash. So we've got a VTOL takeoff to 30, then a climb out waypoint at 60, and then we have all of our grid waypoints at 100, and then we have waypoint 32, which is right here at 30, so it's going to descend across here to 30, and then we have a VTOL land at 0. Now the landing behavior is it's going to fly out, hit that waypoint at 30, hold altitude, transition to vertical mode, coast over to the landing point, and then land vertically from 30. So that's what to expect. So we'll check that. Checking the waypoint type, so we have a VTOL takeoff And a VTOL land, super important, like I said in the last video. If you have just takeoff and land, you're going to have a bad day. And then we have our climb out waypoint, and then all of our waypoints, and do set camera trigger distance commands throughout here, and all of that looks correct. And up here, we're set to terrain. We want to make sure this is set correctly to terrain or relative, depending on what we want to use. Confirm takeoff and landing points. So I've already confirmed that they're the correct waypoint type. And then I'm just going to make sure that, okay, this is my landing point. This is where I want it to be. And my takeoff point does not have a latitude and longitude, just like on a fixed wing, so we don't have to worry about that. But we do want to make sure that the altitudes are correct. Now I can write the waypoints. Done. I'm going to read them back down. It's going to prompt you if you want to clear your existing mission. We do. And we're going to reset home to the loaded coordinates, because that's going to pull the home point from the plane, not the one that's in here, because the one that's in here could be off by a little bit, depending on where the plane booted up and things. So now we're going to confirm the flight plan. Basically what this means is to run back through those checks we just did. So I'm making sure this still reads terrain. We still have a VTOL takeoff to 30, climb out at 60, waypoints at 100, waypoint at 30, VTOL land at 0, and all of this still looks the same. That's what verify or confirm flight plan means. If anything's wrong, this is our last chance to correct it before we fly. So we're going to clean the lens on the camera. Super important. You don't want smudgy, dusty images. Confirm the camera's ready. So in this case, we're going to go up here. We're going to right click and click trigger camera now. That may be different depending on what camera you're using. Maybe you're using a FLIR and you're going to be recording the whole time. So you're just going to start recording now. Just depends on the sensor you're using. And if you're using a red edge, I list here that you should connect to the camera's Wi-Fi and confirm that all the status lights and indicators are good there. So take a calibration or test shot. I just did that. Right click, trigger camera now. Make sure you get a capture. Check manual servo direction and throw. So we're going to manipulate the controls and make sure that all the control surfaces respond appropriately. Just like on a fixed wing, we're going to move the aircraft around and make sure that everything responds correctly to counteract that movement. Arm the throttle. I'm going to do that from the controller with rudder arming. You can also always arm from right here. So we're armed. And then we're going to change the flight mode to auto. And when we do that, the aircraft is going to take off. And we're done with the checklist. And now we'll sit here and we'll watch this aircraft fly because it's going to be pretty interesting. Notice that we're climbing to 30. Now we're getting a transition. Airspeed is climbing. We're proceeding to waypoint 2. And now we've hit that radius, so we're turning around, flying to waypoint 3. We've reached 100-ish meters. And now we're just proceeding through the flight plan